Nathan, do you see this? Sorry.
Yep. Just give me
Okay, I should have removed this, but I think it's gonna go now.
Yep. It
All
works.
right. Hi. How are you
Hey,
doing?
doing well. Doing well. How are you doing?
Doing fine. Uh, well, I don't think the audience know what we have to go through in our back studio. Um, it's always gets your adrenaline up, right? Just like I guess in every sporting tournament or performances or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We gotta
Oh
talk to
yeah,
that producer. We gotta get her her equipment fixed.
I know. Well, um, we're live. It's the 29th of December, 6:05 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Nathan, would you like to greet our audiences?
Yeah. Welcome everybody. It's glad to have you all back that were here last week, and looking forward to meeting all the new people here, and looking forward to this discussion that we have since the new year is upon us.
Thank you. And my name is Dr. Arlene Strogar. I am very excited, to have finally partnered with my trainer, um, my coach, and my colleague, sports psychologist. He didn't like that term. He wants to call himself the strength and conditioning for the mind coach, right?
I mean,
So
I love sports psychologists, but yeah, that too.
So, my friend Victoria here was saying what happens in the back studio before the show is hilarious, right? So,
Always.
that's always the case, Victoria. You know how that goes, right? So, so thanks for the best wishes there. Thank you, Victoria from Colorado Springs. But anyhow, I know we have introduced our maiden offering for our I don't know, maybe this is a podcast, a live stream, or also available on YouTube, and we have an archive of this. My colleague here, Nathan, is an alum of UCLA and also of Michigan State. Is that right?
Yep. Go green.
So, for those who have not had a chance to listen to your background last time, maybe we could do like a minute or so of your background and your passion about sports psychology and performance coaching.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, so I've been working with Mental Training Inc. for about 7 years now. I've also taught at the university level, a couple of places around the country. I've worked with athletes, performing artists, people in business, and just a wide variety. So essentially, even though like basketball and tennis are probably my main sports I love working with, I just really love working with people who are wanting to excel at whatever it is that they're doing. So whether it's a sport, being a manager, being a teacher, whatever it may be, just love being able to help people show that what you can do with your mind can enhance your performance all around.
Right. Public speaking. I know you've have coach. We do it every week. You've coached me on presentation, coaching, presenting my research work, etc., etc. So, the list goes on and on when it comes to I would say applied applications of psychology, sports psychology. I would, coming from a
Mhm.
clinical psychologist, I think, we've touched on that as well on our, in terms of motivation, self-awareness. So there's a lot that goes into the field of peak performance and sports psychology. Um, Today's topic is very timely. I know last week we've talked about emotion control, and maybe because you're the expert there, Nathan, just kind of like give us a gist of what that is, and we could refer them to our previous recorded session last week.
Of course, right. When we talk about emotion control, we're really talking about what does it take to get into peak state so that you're performing in the zone, like we like to talk about, and that means basically being calm, confident, carefree, focused, and motivated. And essentially, you're so in whatever task, whatever performance that you're in, that you are in that sweet spot of feeling confident, being challenged, and you are just so lost in the moment. Time flies and everything looks great, and you're just performing at your best. And doesn't mean that it's perfect, but it means that you're even adapting very fluidly. And so when we talk about emotion control, we're talking about how do we get ourselves to be in that peak state. And a lot of times it's these external things that we allow to impact how we think and how we act. And so when we realize what these external factors are, the thoughts that are evoked because of these external factors and how those thoughts impact our zone presence, when we're able to understand that and start training our mind so that we could get there when we need to, almost like flipping like a switch. It's not that easy, but being very general, that's what we mean by emotion control, being able to understand who you are, how you're performing, what your peak ideal state is, and trying to make sure that you're constantly getting to that peak state whenever you're aware.
Or absolutely. And I think the key there, as we said, is recognition to enter the zone. And then there are certain steps that you have to do, which is the first step there, which is a deceptively simple technique, which is breathing, right?
Yeah, right.
Is there a particular way to breathe that, I was asked that last week
Oh,
when it
right.
comes to breathing, and then your self talk that goes to
Mm-hmm.
the um, carefree, focused, motivated, and what's the other one?
Focus,
Uh,
carefree, calm, confident, carefree. Yeah.
I'm confident, carefree, focused, and motivated. And then, is there a particular way of breathing that gets you into the zone?
Actually, there's been a lot of types of breathing developed that could be used for various situations. We could actually do a whole talk on it at some
Okay.
point.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, because there are a few, and there's some that are more able to be used in the middle of a performance. Some that you want to use maybe just like as you wake up in the morning, being able to incorporate the breathing, which is definitely doable. Where like a quick one would be just like what we call the triangle breathing. This one I like to use. That's a relatively
Mm-hmm.
quick, where you
Mm-hmm.
inhale using belly breath for a count of four,
Uh-huh.
you exhale for a count of four, and then you hold for a count of four. And then you
Okay.
do that. And the idea is that one, it takes your mind off maybe some of the anxious thoughts that are getting there. Two, you're physically getting your body to calm down and just
Mhm.
regulate, and you're feeling more in control. And also, just what we know about any types of breathing, when you're making intentional effort, it really does just changes the locus of control for you. And so
Right.
we could definitely do a show talking about the various kinds, practicing them, and even a show on routines on how we can incorporate breathing as well as other the mental skills that we coach up, so that you could have something that's in your pocket and ready to go on a constant basis, or even in times of stressors and when things
Yeah.
don't go right, you could pull this out and make it help your performance and get you back in that optimal state of emotion wheel.
Oh, absolutely. That'd be great. And as a matter of fact, you have put together a list of the topics that we will be curating based on requests and what we think is relevant for the time. So that's
Should be a
great. So
fun year.
that's yes. So that's the recap of what we've done last week. And again, it's available on YouTube. It's Brain Fit, Mind Fit, Body Fit, and I will actually put that here as well. So today's topic is very very timely. We've advertised about making New Year's resolutions that work. We talked about this in our preparation. We, brainstorm about what could that mean to people, right? So maybe we could first personalize it and see whether you and I have our own. We still believe in that? There's a lot of like I've seen. Oh, don't make New Year's resolutions. It's not gonna work. There must be a reason as to why it's worked. So we want to debunk that and provide them brain science, neuroscience, sports psychology tips that actually is scientifically proven to, when you do it, it will work. So, Needon, as a coach, as a trainer, as a sports psychologist, right? What are your New Year's resolutions when it comes to fitness, wellness, and overall? And maybe you could maybe personalize this for us and make it real for us.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I lived in Boston before moving back home to LA, and I built up a pretty good dad bod when I was out there. And so when I moved back home, one of the things I wanted to do was, get back into shape. I love running. I love running races, and having a dad bod doesn't help. And then also my family doesn't help with my ego when it comes to gaining weight. My dad and
Are you
my
serious?
sister, yeah, my dad, my family, they because I was always the skinny kid, so they like poking that I gained some weight. So it took me uh it's taken me a while to get back down to somewhat normal, but I still got some more to go. And so that's what this, I guess, my New Year's resolution is to get back into race shape.
Mm-hmm.
um, Luckily for myself, I know what that means, and like everybody else, like we all want to get better. That's why we do this, right? We want
Right.
to, either look better, feel better, whether it's losing weight, maybe giving up smoking, drinking, eating better. We're trying to just get better, and a lot of times we choose the New Year's because it's kind of like you turn the page to the next chapter. So like
Yeah.
as a person, as a human, that really just makes sense to us. Like, okay, this is a fresh start. I don't feel guilty for having eaten like crap, the last few months. I didn't get out and exercise every day like I wanted to. This is January 1st, new year, new me, going to do it again. Everybody likes that. But what we're trying to talk about is that even though we may all want that, very few of us actually come through. And this isn't just about like, doing resolutions like we talked about. This is like goals that we have that we want to see through. And if it just happens to be a New Year's resolution, even that much more sweeter, because then it's something that we can look back on.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm hoping for our audience today is that what we use in ours as well as what we see with our clients and those we worked with, we'll be able
Mhm.
to help them as well, at
Right.
least give them some thoughts. And because this is a process, what we're going to talk about today is a little bit more intentional. There's
Mm-hmm.
some more understanding of the processes, and so that just takes our minds to get used to, because when it comes to something new, um, we just have to start rewiring our brains in that way. If you want to, we'll touch on that.
Exactly. So resolutions, right? I
Yeah.
think this one is not a. We didn't prep our conversation, but it just came to mind right now as you were talking. Why do people make resolutions anyway before the start of the year? Was there some sort of like a time frame component to it? Like
You
because
talking
it's
about like
the
historically speaking?
historically speaking, or just maybe scientifically speaking, like why is it January 1st? What's the big deal about January 1st, right? Everybody's like, even if you don't make are really mulling over it, you're really thinking about, like, it's just another way of saying every
Right.
Monday
Right.
I start my stuff. Is there a scientific studies that goes with it as to whether that's effective or not?
That one I don't know, and I would probably see more stuff if I read like say like an Oscar Wilde or a Proust type poem. I just think it's naturally in us to do it anyways. Like
Yeah.
if you're like in the middle of a task and it's like 2:35 in the afternoon, you're like, okay, 2:40, I'll start on the next task. Like we just
Okay.
want to have something that makes us feel like we could have a starting
Is
point. And
a
and I
starting
think
point.
and I think that's what January 1st does for us. It gives us a starting point, and also that, at least in my personal experience, just like a relief of, okay, I don't feel like I'm behind. I might be ahead of schedule, so that's why I want to start this on January 1st of the new year,
Right. Yeah.
as
I have a
opposed to
friend.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. Um, I have a friend who would always, whenever she feels like she is not successful, she always say, "I'll start on Monday. I'll start on Monday."
Right.
Every time you
Yep.
talk to her, she'll
Yep.
start on a Monday, right?
Yep.
It is as if there is some sort of like the start of the week. You're setting yourself up for a starting point and a finish line, right?
Hmm.
So I just thought that because you've studied all of this, so I thought I there is something that's out there. But anyway, I agree with you on
Very
just
good.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
human nature. No, you're
yeah,
hitting on it. It's human nature. Yeah.
yeah. So okay, so without further ado, let's just start with the pink elephant in the room again, which is how do I make resolutions that work?
Okay.
I've made it many, many times. And I want to share quickly here also. I do have some resolutions.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will kind of purposely make it not hard so that I have a way to exit. But this time, honestly, I really want to have a resolution in terms of wellness, fitness, mindset. Uh, January 1st. I'm already prepping myself into that. And there's always that pre contemplation and contemplation that happens, right? So I already kind of like, I've learned from colleagues like you that I need to have some, the contemplation, the pre contemplation, and the action phase. So I already have set myself up in the pre contemplation and contemplation. I'm no longer thinking about it. I'm already kind of launching myself on that.
Yeah,
So I have an
can you explain or like share what your pre-contemplation phase looked like for you?
Yeah, so my contemplation, even my pre-contemplation was, I thought of something I imagined, right? I went back and I said, oh, I wonder if I could actually be um adding Peloton in my training. I never cycled before. I actually hate it. I'm so bored, just like walking in a treadmill.
Oh yeah.
That's something I do not enjoy. So what I did was I kind of like purposely watch people doing it at the gym, attend here and there. And it was not really, so I really have to force myself to really even think about that I'll be doing it and find something that what's in it for me. Even my why was not big enough to even start doing that, but I know that I love to sweat and do high cardio. And that's something I have not done before. And my husband, for being I was sharing with you a pro cyclist when he was younger, he had suggested that that is the quickest way to get in shape. And I could just imagine, that's right. Every time I use Tour de France, I watch Tour de France, I could see these people are really in shape
Yeah.
and hardcore, right? So my pre-contemplation was a lot of research, was a lot of thinking,
Mm.
was a lot of me saying to myself, I don't want to. Until my former boss really was into Peloton, and I inserted that conversation every time I have coaching with her, just for her to kind of see and feel. And my pre-contemplation involves me being honest with myself as to why I don't like it.
Mm.
And then as I keep talking about it, I realize that there is, I'm just being, with a capital J, that I am not being open minded. Someone had told that to me and said, you're not being, try it. So my trying, I think, is a part of my contemplation, not even an action, because I was there to set. So I signed up for a Peloton class locally. And my goal there was to prove myself that I'm right. That is the most boring thing ever. I will never enjoy it, right?
Okay.
So my competitive side was came up. I was so surprised that people there were so competitive, and because I was not doing it, I will never know how competitive it was. So I never know that that's the trait that would bring up my what's in it for me,
Yeah.
and that would actually make me sign up. So I've been doing it for 4 months now, and I really love it.
It's awesome. No, and I love it that it spoke that competitive part because that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today. Like it's that intrinsic internal motivation. How do we get that out? It's not that we don't have. It's just like what's going to unlock it,
Yeah.
and how has that helped you stay on a consistent routine?
Yeah, I never thought that my competitive traits, in terms of like competitive with myself and seeing others that are so competitive, because there is a scoring, and there is like that spirit, right? And so my pre-contemplation and contemplation involved me telling myself I am correct. That's not something I would enjoy doing. And then it also involves me getting into that again, wanting to prove to myself that I'm that's not something I would like to do. And I was proven wrong, because I was focusing on the activity and not really the experience.
Right. No, that's a really good point. Really good
Yeah.
point.
And I think that leads to what you've said a while ago when I asked you about, hey, what if I have already consumed and exhausted all my resources? What else should I use? And you said about, well, just even be superficial. Just,
Oh yeah.
just look good, feel good, right? Whether that affects your mood or not, just be
Oh
out
yeah.
there.
No, no, and that's a great segue because one of the biggest things is what is your why? Why are you doing this? Like for me, since I live in LA, I like going to the beach, but you know what? Nobody notices my personality on the beach, so how else am I going to get attention? I have to work on my body. So for me, when I give my New Year's resolution, when I go out running, when I eat well, all that stuff, yes, I want to race fast, but I also want to look good. And so those are the things that I get to hold, whether it's like me contemplating, do I want to get out of bed for this? Or even in the middle of my run, like, okay, do I want to do this extra half mile or do I just want to stop now? So what is your why? And that's
Right.
what's going to get you out. And because like for you, like we all want to look good, but you also found that competitive part. Like you found
Yeah.
something that makes you just like, oh yeah, no, I want to come out here and I want to beat them and I want to be able to compete. And that's why you've been doing it for the last 4 months.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody has to really take an inward look and see, okay, why am I doing this? Why do I want to do it?
Yeah.
And like you were saying, there's no shame in saying, I want to get this new bathing suit and I want to look awesome in it.
Yeah.
Not a bad reason at all.
And that was the I never thought it would happen, but again, I was focusing on the activity and not experience, because I will never even find out, but it was very real for me. So without going, I know that we are, already 25 minutes into the hour. We
Oh yeah.
always are so chit chatty. I think psychologists are just very chit chatty people. uh, well, take it away, Maiden, and give us kind of like, where do we start when we make resolutions that
Okay,
work?
yeah. I'm going to tell you experience not only with people I've worked with, but also with myself. These are the things I've addressed when I wanted to do like a New Year's resolution of some sort. But a couple of things I really notice is that when it comes to failing at whatever your goals are, whether it's New Year's resolutions or not, a lot of times it's a lack of understanding or embracing your why, like we just talked about. Also, not setting proper goals. We'll get into that into a second. And then lastly, not having a support system that can help you along the way. So
Mm-hmm.
with the why, like we talked about, why do you want to do this? I want to look good. I want to feel better. Another thing I love about, like, I'm a big time, I love running. And when my heart is strong, coffee hits so much better. And then if I have a good morning run, like a good
Coffee
5 miler, and I have this great cup of coffee, like I feel like I could just run through a wall and take over the world. That alone is worth me getting
Is it
into
because your veins are expanded, right?
yeah, the heart's pumping. My metabolism is firing well, and it just tastes better. It feels better. Coffee is amazing after a run. I love it. So those are some of my whys. When it then, since I have a goal of getting back into race shape, I'm relatively fast for my age group. Um, that is great for me because I like medaling in races. That's my outcome goal. Outcome goals are like winning a gold medal. Performance goals, which is the second time, is like running your best running time. So say like you want to run a 5 minute mile, right? But then it's the process goals that I really want to hit home, where it's okay, if I want to hit 5 minute miles, if I want to medal in my age group, then I need to be running this many miles on these days. I should also be doing some strength and conditioning work by doing like my squats, press, all that stuff, and also doing intervals. And then when I understand what kind of intervals I want to do, like do I do 2x400s, 2x200s, 2x1, whatever it may be. But that's why this is it really is a process. If you want to do resolutions or just goal setting right, you want to be able to break down what are the things that you need to do to get to that outcome of winning a gold medal. And if you're
Mhm.
able to think about it and really break it down, you own it, it's internalized, and you're also able to just use that as your feedback. Because
Mhm.
once you start understanding what your process goals are, you also understand what kind of feedback tells you that you're improving, and your body's just naturally inclined to get more excited and happy and dedicated to the goal when you see your feedback. If you're going from a 9 minute mile to then a 8:30 mile to 7:45 mile, you see that kind of progress in the matter of weeks and months, then you're going to be really excited to keep going out there, and you're going to even want to go in the cold. You're willing to run in the rain because you see that feedback and you want to get better. Naturally, you just want to get better. So that's why doing your process goals, doing proper goals are so important.
So like goal setting is very very to your point. So if my goal is to lose weight or increase my mobility or have more focused, so do you use smart goals? Do I really have to write it down? Get my journal in order for me to be able to measure it and provide myself feedback. I know that there are calendars or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
so walk me through if my goal is to lose weight or improve my mobility or maybe sleep better or
Mm-hmm.
anything non-athletic.
Right. What you would want to do is first take like a baseline measure, and what that means is if you haven't started your workout routine or even where you're at, just like right now, if you want to
Mhm.
lose a certain amount of weight, if you want to sleep a certain amount of hours, if you want to feel a certain way, write down right now how you currently feel, and then next to that, write how you want to feel. So it kind of
Mhm.
gives you at least a two, a contrasting view of where you're at now and where you want to go.
So repeat
And
that again, Nathan, on your baseline
yeah, baseline
is
on where you're at right now. Where you're
okay.
at right now. So like I'll use the running example again. Right now I'm running about 8:30, 8 minutes and 30-second miles. I'm actually used to running about a 7:10 mile. So I'm a long ways of where I used to be. But I know like right now if I'm running 8:30, I have a pretty good sense that in the next weeks and months of what my time should be cutting down to.
Mm-hmm.
And but the baseline is 8:30. And
Okay.
then I have something to base it get my feedback on. Okay, today I ran an 8 minute mile, for 5 miles. That's great. I just knocked off 30 seconds from the last time I looked at my,
Mhm.
my baseline. So you want to have that feedback because that's gonna trigger the parts of your brain that's like, oh my gosh, we're doing this. I want to do this even more, which is awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to have that baseline and where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talked about the process goal also, but Victoria has a question, I think, with regard to that. Have you ever not medaled in one of your races? How did you overcome it and stay encouraged to continue to try?
No, I love it because the one time I didn't medal was when I was living in Boston. And if you don't know this, Boston has like the world's greatest collection of everyday runners in the world. So it actually didn't even hit me that bad. I was like, I'm still doing pretty well. I'm running with some of the best. Like I actually wasn't mad I didn't medal. That's the one time I haven't medaled it. So I was like, I couldn't be mad. These are like some of the best in the world. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm not.
So
I was
you
never trying
put
to be an
things on
Olympian. So
perspective, right? That's how
yeah, it
you
was
get
very much perspective.
encouraged.
I was like, I'm running through some of my favorite Boston neighborhoods. I'm happy just doing that.
Well, that was
Yeah.
a great question,
Yeah.
Victoria.
Thank you.
Okay, so you put things on perspective, right? Which is being
Oh yeah.
realistic, right?
Oh yeah.
So
I
that's,
mean,
I think, another part of what you were saying.
I could have also mentioned how like there was this 12-year-old kid who kicked my butt. That was a little. That was a kick to my ego for a little bit. But at the same
Okay.
time, like I live in Boston. I shouldn't be surprised.
So measure kind of understand where your baseline and where
Hmm.
you're going, put some sort of like a contrast, kind of like even in a paper, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, be realistic, and then where you want to go, what
Hmm.
are your stuff. But then you have to use smart goals, specific, measurable, accurate, relative, and time bound, where you want
Hmm.
to go and all this stuff. I think maybe our audience will benefit if we actually post on our Facebook group, which is coming up this week. All of our documentations will be there.
Hmm.
So okay, so you have that, and then you talk about process, outcome goals,
Hmm.
time management, all kinds of stuff, motivation. Why? Tell us
Also,
more about that.
well, and then also just want to at least introduce support group. So a support group is usually at least one other person that you're sharing this with.
Okay.
Somebody that can kind of help you stay accountable, even
Somebody you
motivated.
trust.
Somebody that you trust that you know won't shame you if you miss a workout for some reason, or might even encourage you to, like, get you up out of bed. I used
Yeah.
to live in a really cool house in Boston, and I had a couple of roommates. And one of my roommates would ask me to wake her up when I left for my morning run so she could get ready for her workout. So it
Yeah.
was great because, like, it got me out of bed because I was like, okay, I have to make sure she's up before I leave, and then it gets me out of bed to go out for my run, even if I
Typical
wasn't
body
feeling it.
system kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it was a nice little buddy system because that's the only time it's ever been in, like, the same house. Usually it's like I have a text, or somebody will just ping me in
Yeah.
some way and be like, hey, don't
Yeah.
forget this. And
Right. Right.
um, so
Well,
that's
let
my
me
support.
interrupt you with that one too, because I've read recently, one psychologist, a behavioral change person, said, you know what, if you're courageous enough to even post your on your
Yeah.
social social media that this is what I'm trying to do, obviously you'll be vulnerable and very courageous to even say that. That's you're just professing it out there that this is my goal. What is your take on that?
Oh, like, that's great. For me personally, my ego is so fragile. Like, I have a smartwatch. I actually have all my stats only for me. I don't have it public. Even though people follow me on the various apps that I'm a part of,
Yeah, yeah.
I use it for me for my own tracking, but I just, yeah. So for me, there are plenty of apps. Whether you have an Apple Watch, you have a Fitbit, whatever. That's actually been great for some of my other friends and family, where they'll show people where they ran that day. People could, like, high five them and cheer them. So those apps can be a definite asset. But
So
I'm
there's
I'm
the
a little bit more.
socialization side to it,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
If you
which is
want to.
which is really, really helpful.
Okay.
Which is why you see, like, even CrossFit, like, sometimes people call it a cult because the community is so strong and they're so passionate about what they do and they do it together. So cult or
Okay.
not, like, they have a really strong community. And if
Yeah.
that's something that you feel like you need, join a
Sure.
CrossFit gym, find a meetup. But build up a support group of at least one other person if you really want to see yourself through this.
Okay, cool. And okay, so the outcome goal process, goal
Mhm.
setting, what's in it for you? And you talk about a little bit more so socialize it, just one person or many, that is all
Yep.
up to you, but don't
Yep.
to create a support system. Don't make it a secret in
Yeah.
short.
Unless you're like the ultra uber Kobe type that has the internal fire to do whatever it takes, regardless who's around.
Yeah, right,
We
right.
all
Yeah.
need at least one other person.
Right, right. But I
Yeah.
think to your point now, what happened to me in my pre-contemplation and contemplation joining a peloton, the competitive side is a socialization aspect,
Oh yeah,
right?
definitely. Yep.
I got that motivation because when I saw that there is a competitive spirit, a healthy one, I got fired up,
Yep. Yeah.
right? And so I think to your point, those group are my support system. I just didn't know that, right?
Yeah. So when I was in Boston, I used to run along the Charles River, which, if you live close enough, you want to run along the Charles. And I would pick somebody who was, like, at least a quarter mile ahead of me, and I could see them, and I would use them as my target. I'd be like, that's the
Yeah.
person I want to chase. So even if they had no idea how they were helping me in my journey,
Right,
I
right, right.
used them as, like, a rabbit for me to chase down and be like, okay, my competitive fire means, like, I want to beat this person. I want to run faster than them. So
Right, right. Okay,
I feel
so
like we got to tap into
if
that.
you're
Yeah.
competitive, get that competitive spirit, whether
Yeah.
that person knows it or not. To my point, no,
Right.
those people don't know that I go there to
Yeah.
compete with them. They have no clue, right?
Exactly. Right.
Because it brings me fire, right? So,
Uh-huh.
so that's great. And then what else? Motivation. I talked to you about. Well, I've exhausted everything. It might
Mhm.
sound like an excuse, but I'm out of my wits here. There was a saying that it's not necessarily how many times you fall, but when what matters is when you get back up, right?
Right. Hmm.
So tell me about the motivation. If you're not really that motivated for whatever reason, even though you
Hmm.
know why you're doing it, how do
Yeah.
you motivate your athletes? As a sports psychologist, what did you do to get them going?
Right. I like to have them, whether they have a vision board, an Instagram saved folder, if it's images, if it's motivational speeches, if they need like a certain podcast or song, to have that available. Like you part of your goal setting is also kind of forecasting what kind of obstacles you might run up against, and then using the mental skills, whether it's visualization, self-talk, or bringing in these other aspects like a certain video, certain song, that you know that this will help you get over that obstacle
Mhm.
and being able to have that close by. For me, especially when I've lived in cold weather climates like Michigan and Boston, even though I could wake up at 5:30, I couldn't get out of bed at 5:30 because it was just so cold, particularly this time of year. And so
Mhm.
I would have to sometimes either pull up like my Instagram account that had like running inspirational accounts on there that I could use, or
Mhm.
even certain videos or songs just to remind myself, hey, this is why I'm doing it. And even
Mhm.
for those days where that wasn't enough, I just listen to my body. Like maybe I'm just burning out because I've been running like a lot, putting in a lot of miles, or there's other stuff going on in my life, and that's don't beat yourself up over that. If you need a day or two where you just need to like scale back,
Mhm.
allow
Mhm.
yourself that as well. You don't want to beat yourself up for not sticking to a routine every single day. Give
Right.
yourself that leeway. Like if you wake up on a Wednesday morning, you're like, I can't do this. Say, okay, I'll try it again tomorrow, or I'll try it again on Monday, whatever it
Right.
may be. But you
Or
want to,
next January 21st,
or or next
2023.
year,
That's not good.
2023.
Well,
But
what brings me to a point of all or nothing thinking, right?
right, right,
So, tell us about that. That's one of
um,
the biases, right?
right. So you what we term like cognitive load. Cognitive load is what like we hold in our heads, whether it's like the pressures of work, or maybe the pressures of even buying the right Christmas gift, and you're afraid like if you buy the wrong one, you might like you know not get the praise you want, or you might be offensive, whatever it may be. And so when we hold that in ourselves, our body's like tensing up and holding up a lot of stuff. And the same could happen when it comes to New Year's resolutions, where we're like we have to be disciplined. I have to work out. I have to not eat this. I have to make sure I'm disciplined in all these ways. When you're putting yourself through that kind of state, what I have to and can't do, you're setting yourself up to fail at some point. There was a Dartmouth study that looked at dieting. Um, I should have had the citation. I'll get the citation later. But essentially, those that were trying to diet and they were told they were given like access to this ice cream bar. Um, all the ice cream, whether it was ice cream served, soft serve to bars itself, they were told you can't have this. You can only have a certain amount, and when you have that certain amount, then that's it for the day. The ones that were told they could have as much as they want, they just had free reign. Um, Going back to the first group, after they were told that they could only have a certain amount, the next day, I believe it was, they were allowed to just have free reign. And what they showed was the next day aspect, I believe it was, those who were told that they couldn't have amount overindulged because they
Okay.
were holding back, and they finally had like, for whatever reason, their cognitive load release, they overindulged on what they were trying to hold back from. This is the ones that were
Yes.
having a certain kind of diet. And
Right.
so, not to say that you don't want to have boundaries or parameters in place, but you really want to take a look at, okay, what am I restricting myself from, and is this
Yes.
actually hurting my goals? And
Right.
so that's why if some of my favorite dietitians, just the ones on Instagram alone, they're the ones that are really, listen to your body, have your
Yes.
goals, but don't be unreasonable. Like, you
Right.
know, if you're a fan of the keto diet, if you're a fan of intermittent dieting, definitely speak to your doctor, see how that helps. But also understand like that's also playing a role in how you're thinking and how your body's reacting, particularly when it comes to those stressors where I don't want to get out of bed, but if I don't get out of bed and I don't exercise, what does that do for my day? Does it like ruin the rest of my day because I couldn't go out for my morning run? So you essentially what I want to say is listen to your body,
Listen to your
have your
body, right?
goals,
Yeah. Yeah.
listen to your body. There's no test. I mean, yes, we all want to look good by the time June rolls around, but at the same time, if we don't have a six pack, but we just happen to be slimmer, that's pretty good too.
That's pretty good too. Right. So no polarized thinking, cognitive overloads, listen
Right.
to your body, and really understand what you're restricting yourself from, right? Because I think it's more than self-control, right?
It's
uh
self-awareness. The self-awareness.
self-awareness,
Yeah.
self-control, self-awareness is what you I love that what you mentioned that as well last time. So okay, so what else is there? I know it's kind of over time for us, but I think this is an
Yeah.
important topic.
No, I mean, if you want to try something, I would say start keeping a journal. And it doesn't have you don't have to write a full-on entry. It could just be some stuff like you want to put some time into prepping your journal. Like these are my goals. I want to
Mhm.
lose this amount of weight, or I want to quit drinking, etc. You want to lay it out, and you want to list your reason why. Not only having it on paper, but just writing out your reason why you want to do this is going to be great for you to internalize this.
Right.
Then you want to be able to start writing out, okay, what are the processes I need to do to get there? I need to, take the spin class, or I need to like not drink so many beers on the weekend. Whatever
Mhm.
that looks like, you start figuring out what's going to be best for you to reach your goals, your process goals.
Right.
Then you want to also keep your journal around because you want to start putting in your daily results because as we were talking about earlier, feedback really enhances the body, your mind to be like, oh, we're doing this and I want to do it again. So if your goal is to lose weight, you want to be able to say, okay, in order for me to lose weight, I'm not saying count calories. I'm saying count what are you doing for exercise? Count, are you eating your vegetables? Are you getting good servings of vegetables?
Mhm.
So I don't want you like counting calories on what you're deducing, but just like what are the healthy habits now you're adding to your life?
Right.
Or even if it's I want to not drink for the month of January.
Mhm.
Great one I like to look at is how much money am I saving? Because if I go out drinking,
Okay.
I could spend like, a good amount of money on beers and shots. But
Mhm.
obviously if I'm not, I could be like, oh, I would have spent that tonight, but
Right.
instead I have this
Yeah.
extra $40 that I can
Yeah.
now use on going to the movies.
I really
So,
like how you're, well, I won't say tricking your brain, but you're reframing how you are listing because you are eliminating restrictions, right? Calorie counting is restrictive. Like there is
mhm.
always the submission to how much am I eating. So the dieting, I always say the first three-letter words of dieting is die. So you're gonna die
Right?
there. It's not a literal death, but to your point a while ago, you eventually will fail because there's that overloading, cognitive overloading that you were just mentioning in a study that people do that, and I do that as myself. So every time I think about that, I'm going to eat less. For example, eat less carbs. Uh, the next moment, I'm actually already eating a lot of carbs because my brain hypothalamus doesn't want that. It's almost as if I know that I'm going to restrict myself from something I really like,
Hmm.
and therefore human nature kicks in. I will say, let me now hoard that and
Yeah.
get myself, because there is always that pleasure seeking part of our brain. There's that emotional brain as well. So my executive function frontal cortex said that's what you have to do, but then
Yep.
my parietal and all the back end of my brain said, well, anyway, it's not a good feeling, I don't want to do that. So there's always that tension, so I like that part. So you talk about journaling, being real with your um, goals, and I think you also mentioned, it doesn't have to be a lofty goals. You could start small and chunk it
Yes.
up,
Yep.
right? And be honest with yourself. Listen to your body. Self
Yes.
awareness
Yeah.
is huge. A lot of self
Hmm.
awareness research that really talks about it starts there. You have to be
Hmm.
aware of yourself, of your body, as your that will be your barometer.
Yeah.
Anything else there, Nate?
No, just speaking to listen to your body, I'm a big proponent of that because your body, whatever life experiences you have, all the stuff that's on the inside, I mean, it takes pretty objective accounts, no
Mm-hmm.
matter, what you've been through. And just like going back to like even the food, one way I like to listen to my body is luckily I very much love vegetables with my meats. And so if I'm trying to lose weight, I just eat like a lot of broccoli and vegetables because like they're dense, but they're not really like bad calories. So it actually like it's helping me fuel for my run. I feel full and I'm listening to my body. I'm not trying to like restrict it in any way.
Yeah.
And eating a lot of it is actually a really good thing for me. So just also being starting to become more strategic and how you
Mm.
do the reframing and how you
Mhm.
put what you put in
Mhm.
front of you for your goals.
Mhm. Yeah. So you talked about Victoria touched on the reframing your brain, right?
True, yes.
And you want to be strategic. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Right. And so this is where like the homework comes in before you can actually do really, really proper goals. Where if like it's easy to say, okay, I'm just gonna run every day. I could lift some weights and I'm gonna eat well. Great goal, but very vague. And so I have to be like, okay, I know what my capabilities are as a runner. I know I could like set myself up by submitting myself for a race in the summer. Like I know a couple of races I already want to sign up for. I already know what my eating habits are like, what I'm capable of cooking, in terms of like. So these are things I've had to like listen and really sit down and think about before I can make some of these goals. Because if I was
Mhm.
an elaborate cooker, I would be overwhelming. Because if I'm the type that needs to make like beef stroganoff from scratch, like it's like I don't have enough time for that. So then I'm just going to give up because if I can't do that, then I can't do my goals at
Mhm.
all. It's like no, no, no.
Right,
I know
right.
I can bake chicken and I could do vegetables and rice relatively quickly, so that's not overwhelming. So when it comes to creating these goals, you want to know what the process goals are, so that you can manage them. Those are the ones that you're in control of. And then you
Mm-hmm.
really want to think through them so that when you think about, okay, if I want to run a race, I know what my body's capable of. How can I train it to be faster so I could really enjoy this race? So
Right, right.
it's one thing to understand the process, but it's another to really understand all the little nuances that allows you
Nuances.
to feel like
Right,
this is a good enough challenge for me to meet. Like,
right. Yeah.
one thing I really want to encourage is that if you have a challenge, it should be a little bit higher to where like it forces you to do better, to do more, because that's when we start getting into the zone.
Yeah.
You can
What
have
about?
little wins here to build off of, but eventually you
Oh
want to
yeah,
get to, yeah, you want to have the little wins.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Little wins, right? Because that actually brain and magnify your little wins, right? Say it
Yeah.
out loud to yourself, even post it on a post-it note, something you could see and really, the brain loves to be complimented.
Oh yeah.
Right. So the brain is such a sensitive organ of the body, right? It's the master organ. Takes a lot of nurturing. That is why I think your self talk. I
Yep.
think tell us about what kind of self talk will you be having, especially when you're failing.
Oh
I
yeah.
think
No.
yeah,
No, that's a good question. That's a good question. You want to already anticipate it, because if you're already failing, the self-talk that you already have lined up is going to be the dominant one. So again, when we go back to when you create your goals, you want to also envision what are potential obstacles so that you can set yourself up. So whether it's a song that gets you back, or even self-talk and be like, no, that voice is from Coach so and so in junior high who didn't think I would ever get into
yeah,
shape. That's not
right,
me. And then you replace it. And so you want to be able to anticipate it. Like when I was in Boston, it was always I'm too cold to go outside. Oh, it's too cold for me to go outside. And I had to tell myself like, no, I have running tights, I have gloves, and I have earmuffs. We could do this. So
right.
that was my internal struggle, and I always had to like do the self-talk fight in order for me to get out of bed in order to do that.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. The brain loves those kinds of nurturing. And maximize your small wins, right? I think I asked you about this a while ago. There's that social aspect and really feel good component to pushing yourself, or almost as if I ask you about, hey, do you agree with make it fake it until you make it? And I think you've shared something that's really really um practical, and that was a yeah, that's okay, because I think you've said what do first with your body or your mind, and
Mm-hmm.
then your body follows, right? Tell us more about that, because I was telling you about how women most of the time will put lipstick on, makeup, make them look good, and then dress up, and for
Mm-hmm. Right.
me, work from home all the time. I'll put my perfume. My kids will wonder what am I doing. Nobody's can will smell me anyway, but it kind of like stimulates my senses, because those are the kinds of things I do when I go to work, and especially
Mm-hmm.
when I'm doing presentation. It tricks my brain for my brain to be really you know prep myself to my norm.
Hmm.
versus, let's say I'm doing a presentation and I'm still in my pajamas. My body does not really understand why, pajamas normally is like a sleeping thing, and I'm really doing a big presentation, and I want to
Yep.
have this power inside of me, and so I actually will put makeup on, even perfume, dress myself. So tell us about what you said a while ago, like your mind and your body follows, things like that.
Yeah, yeah, no. Sometimes your mind will follow your body. Like obviously our minds control us, but there are times, like even this morning, I had a hard time where like it just, I don't know if it was something I ate last night, but I just felt like, oh, this is gonna be a crap day. But I remember getting up, I put on my running shorts. I didn't feel like it, but that was a fight. Putting on my running shorts and my long sleeve shirt because it was cold out here. And then I went to some of the things that I have um, to motivate me, to just remind me. And I was just like, okay, all right. I may not totally be feeling it, but it's here. It's in front of me. I have my shorts on. If I just walk out the door, I'm going to be walking out the door, and I'm not going to regret not doing my morning run. Um, so yeah, and like even if it took like the first few minutes of the run, as
Yeah.
long as I was out there, I was like, oh, I'm already doing it, so I might as well just do it. Um,
Exactly, right. Yeah.
so
It's funny that you said that. There also, I'm not going to name names, but I have friends who have actually, or family members who would actually be at the parking lot of the gym and still talk themselves out of not going inside the gym. What is going on with that?
and
How could, I'm not saying it is not me. That could be me, pretending to be a family member. But what is that about?
no, I haven't done that yet, but so there's a lake nearby I go to every once in a while when I go for my run, and there have been mornings where I've just sat in my car. I'm like, well, we're here, and I take an extra few minutes. I'll just like for some reason I'll scroll on my phone, or if I have the radio on, and then I'm like, okay, we got to do it. Like we didn't come out here for nothing. So, um, all that to say is like that's totally normal. I want people to know like that's totally normal. You could literally be in the gym and be like, okay, nope, it smells weird. I'm turning around. So that's
I've
totally
done
normal.
that.
But all I could say, all I want to emphasize is that that's an obstacle we know that we could get ourselves into. So, what are the ways that we want to get ourselves out of it? Even when
Yeah.
we don't want to, what are the ways that we can get ourselves out of it?
Yeah. So that's normal, right? I
Yep,
I
totally
think
normal.
maybe we feel short. Again, you listen to your body. Maybe it's your body telling you that that is not where you want to be. And it's
Hmm.
okay, right?
Hmm.
You fail there. And if you really apply what you were just saying, well, you know what? Maybe you'll get some win somehow in your other goals, right? So
Hmm.
don't feel like you are completely, failure and with an all or nothing thinking, right? Go
No,
ahead.
that's a good point too. Like, thank you for reminding me. Also, have contingency plans. Like, one of my biggest things is that because I go for kind of long runs, sometimes the thought of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be out there for about 40, 45 minutes. I don't know if I have time for this. I have jump ropes. I could jump rope for about 25 minutes to 30 minutes, and it may not be what I want in terms of my running, but at least I have that in case I
Yeah.
can't do my running.
Yes. Yeah.
And and even psychologically, I'm like, I don't even have to leave my house for that. I could just go in the backyard. That
Mhm.
somehow is like soothing to me. So like sometimes
Yeah.
that's like my security
Yeah.
blanket of an exercise.
Yeah.
Again, this is where you want to be able to map out what are my potential obstacles and what are ways that I could combat it should I come up against that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that because I've done that before too. Sometimes you have these lofty goals of what you want to accomplish and you didn't end up doing that. So contingency plan is good, and you should really appreciate anything that somehow contributes to your goals, right? Whether
Oh
small
yeah.
things directly or indirectly, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, one of my biggest threats to myself is that I approach almost every run as a training session, even if I'm not nowhere near a race or anything. So I'm like, okay, if I don't get off to like the ideal start just to my morning run, I can't. I have to like make sure I don't beat myself up for that. I'm like, okay, I'm not going at this pace. It's taking me like a whole half mile to actually feel warmed up. I can't beat myself up, and that's something I know. Like that's part of my I don't even listen to music on my runs because I have enough going on in my head that keeps me occupied throughout on staying focused. Um, but being able to be okay with not being perfect and being
Yeah,
okay with your contingency plans and
that's
actually saying like, oh, this was actually kind of good. I'm glad we did this. Encouraging yourself in that.
awesome. That's great. I think this has been a great conversation. I'm sure our audience have learned a lot. There are
I hope so.
doing a lot of stuff in there. I've learned a lot, kind of like validated what I have been thinking. And sometimes, even though we teach this stuff, we need to motivate each other. And that is why,
Exactly.
our weekly sessions with our colleagues are really great
Uh-huh.
conversations with other sports psychologists. I really love that, and your teachings
Same.
there. I know
Thanks.
that this is, kind of like we decided, hey, let's just do a one more before the end of the year. New Year's resolution is a big thing for people to set themselves up. I guess, there's a transcript of this and it will be transcribed as a commentary and people could do that. But this is our second podcast offering and live streaming. Um, before we actually end, it's the top of the hour. Tell us about our Mental Training Inc. and so people will know who we are and what we do and where to find you.
Right. Mental Training Inc. We are a firm of mental trainers, sports psychologists that work with people who want to enhance their performance and be able to be their best when it matters most. Whether it's an athlete, dancer, a church leadership we've worked with, other business companies and departments, essentially understanding how the mind impacts your performance, and we help coach you up in that. And mentaltraininginc.com. And we're building up our social media. It's starting to get a little bit more interesting, so that's good.
That's
But
good.
definitely, you could reach us here, Dr. Arlene and myself. You could reach out to us, and we would love to answer any questions or work with you in any way that we can.
Absolutely. And we're going to be doing this in a cadence of every 2 weeks. We had a trial run last week and this week. I have, been asked of requests for topics. So if you guys have topics that you are interested in for us to discuss, let us know. But definitely, we have been enjoying the conversations and love for you guys to join us. Nathan just put in there Mental Training Inc. Um, Victoria is the one who put it.
Okay, thanks, Victoria.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Victoria. Thank you, Victoria. It's Mental Training Inc., mentaltraininginc.com. Again, it has been a great 2 sessions that we have so far.
It's been
We
fun,
will,
yeah.
yeah, it's fun. We will put it. Thank you, Philippines, for watching. Thank you, Dubai. And my brother in the UK will also be watching. He has been following up. It's just too early for him to wake up, but he has been wanting to get going with his stuff as well. So, we appreciate your time. Happy New Year to all. I'll give you the last statement there, Nathan, to greet our audience. And our next live will be announced, and it will be in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, it'll be a couple of weeks. Thank you again for everybody attending. Whatever was useful, please go back to the video and just see if there's anything else that you might have missed that you could pick up on. And like I said earlier, reach out to us if you do have anything else.
Awesome. And YouTube and all, we will have our own private Facebook group coming up. So thank you all.
Yes,
Happy New Year. And thank you, Nathan, for your expertise. We appreciate it.
my pleasure. You all have a good one. Have a good New Year.
Thank you all. Happy New Year.